Sybil Ludington has just volunteered for a mission no child should face, summoning an entire regiment of farmers and townsmen in the dead of night. But how far did she really ride, and what did she see along the way? As we delve deeper into Sybil's story, we find ourselves transported to a dark and treacherous landscape. The young patriot's route is believed to have stretched from her father's home in Kent, New York, through Carmel, Mahopac, and Stormville, looping back after rousing as many as 400 militiamen. Historians estimate she covered between 16 and 40 miles, depending on the interpretation of her path. Imagine the scene: rain-soaked dirt roads, swollen streams, and forests alive with the sounds of owls, wolves, and perhaps enemy scouts. The night air is thick with tension and the scent of impending danger. Sybil, astride her horse, presses on through the darkness, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. As she approaches each homestead, Sybil would have knocked on doors, her voice cutting through the night air with urgent warnings. "To arms! The British are burning Danbury." The response to her calls was swift and decisive. Eyewitness accounts suggest many farmers rallied immediately, grabbing muskets and powder horns. The clatter of weapons being gathered and the hurried footsteps of men preparing for battle would have echoed through the countryside. One can almost hear the creaking of doors, the startled exclamations of awakened families, and the nervous whinnying of horses as Sybil's message spread like wildfire. The young girl's bravery in the face of such daunting circumstances is truly remarkable. With each mile covered, she was not only battling the elements and the darkness, but also the very real threat of encountering British patrols or Loyalist sympathizers. The landscape itself posed significant challenges. Crossing swollen streams in the dark would have required skill and courage. The forest, usually a familiar sight by day, would have transformed into a maze of shadows and unseen obstacles. Every rustle in the underbrush, every snap of a twig, could have signaled danger. Yet Sybil pressed on. Her determination to complete her mission, to warn as many militia members as possible, drove her forward through the night. The weight of responsibility on her young shoulders must have been immense. Each knock on a door, each warning shouted into the night, could mean the difference between victory and defeat, between life and death for her fellow patriots. As dawn approached, Sybil's journey neared its end. She had traversed a significant portion of the countryside, her message delivered to hundreds of homes. The militia was mobilizing, thanks to her efforts. As she guided her exhausted horse back towards her father's home, she must have felt a mix of relief, pride, and lingering anxiety about the battles to come. But here's where our tale takes an unexpected turn. Unlike Paul Revere, whose ride was documented in newspapers, diaries, and British records, Sybil's story comes primarily from family tradition, written down decades later. The first published account of her ride appeared in 1880, more than 100 years after the event. This gap in the historical record raises intriguing questions about the veracity of Sybil's ride. The lack of contemporary documentation is puzzling. In an era when remarkable events were often recorded in personal journals, letters, and local newspapers, why does Sybil's ride seem to have gone unnoticed by her contemporaries? Was her feat simply overshadowed by the larger events of the war? Or is there another explanation for this historical silence? Some historians argue that the absence of immediate records doesn't necessarily negate the possibility of Sybil's. They point out that many heroic acts during the Revolutionary War, particularly those performed by women and children, went unrecorded at the time. The focus was often on military engagements and the actions of prominent male figures. Others suggest that the story of Sybil's ride may have been embellished over time, growing from a kernel of truth into a more dramatic tale as it was passed down through generations. This is not uncommon in oral traditions, where stories can evolve and take on new dimensions as they're retold. The debate surrounding Sybil's ride highlights a broader issue in historical research. How do we evaluate and verify stories that come to us primarily through family lore and tradition? In an age where we value documented evidence, how do we approach tales that lack contemporary corroboration? This historical uncertainty adds an extra layer of intrigue to Sybil's story. It invites us to consider not just the events of that night in 1777, but also how we remember and commemorate acts of bravery from our past. It challenges us to think critically about the stories we tell and the evidence we use to support them. As we ponder these questions, it's worth considering the cultural context in which Sybil's story emerged. The late 19th century, when her tale was first published, saw a renewed interest in revolutionary, war heroes and a particular focus on uncovering the contributions of women to the American cause. Could this cultural climate have influenced how Sybil's story was remembered and recorded? Moreover, the enduring popularity of Sybil's tale, despite the lack of contemporary evidence, speaks to its power as a narrative. It resonates with our desire for stories of young heroes, of ordinary people rising to extraordinary challenges. Whether entirely factual or partly embellished, Sybil's Ride captures the spirit of sacrifice and courage that defined the Revolutionary era. So what do we make of this gap in the record? Was her ride overlooked because she was a young woman, or because it may never have happened at all? These questions invite us to dig deeper, to examine not just the events of the past, but how we remember and interpret them. As we continue to unravel the mystery of Sybil Ludington's ride, we're reminded that history is not just a collection of facts, but a complex tapestry of stories, memories, and interpretations, each thread contributing to our understanding of who we are and where we come from.